So welcome, friends and infidels, to Sunday Songbook. Hey.
I like that. I was wondering how we were going to broach the subject of it this week. We're actually not doing a film, and Sunday Cinematic Service would be a bit of a lie.
It would be, yeah, but Songbook, we can. It's vaguely religious themed.
Oh, you open up your songbooks to page 56. This week we're singing Bob Dylan.
Yes, the iconic songwriter, novelist, poet,
actor,
screenwriter as well, of Masked and Anonymous, something we'll be covering soon as well.
Painter as well.
Oh yeah, I've heard he does painting now. Have you seen any of them?
Well, yes, his painting graced the cover of everyone's favourite Bob Dylan album, Self Portrait. And
is it more self-portrait? Is that him as well?
Another self-portrait.
Another self-portrait.
Which was also done by Dylan, like in the same style. So yeah, occasional painter. To some, voice of a generation.
Yes, beloved songwriter. Pretty much everyone agrees everything he did from 61's when Another Side of came out. No, not Another. What's the one that's really amazing? It's got him and a person walking on the cover.
The Freewheeling Bob Dylan, which came out
Bob
in
Dylan.
62, I want to say.
Yes, but from Freewheeling to John Wesley Harding, everyone pretty much agrees. Classic after classic.
Yeah.
Pretty much reinvented songwriting. Turned it into more of a sort of loose, very wordy medium as opposed to sort of pop songs, which is sort of that's sort of the sort of normie, sort of mainstream take of it.
Yeah, I mean, like trailblazer, innovator, kind of, however you want to classify him. He changed the face of popular music, and everyone pretty much followed suit. Essentially, that whole style of writing, the more like, he started out as a protest storyteller, singer. Before moving into his, infamous electric period, which pretty much changed popular music, which completely changed the course, and that is no understatement to say.
Yeah. We obviously both think that he was a sellout.
Obviously, he's a sellout, and as a folkie from the 60s, I'm still angry that he doesn't do them protest songs anymore. Not that his protest songs aren't brilliant, because they are brilliant, but he's a man who's gone through many changes, is essentially, I suppose, what we're trying to say. There's been a lot of variances in Bob Dylan's career, which I think is why he's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And continually fascinating. I'd probably rank him as one of my favourite artists.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's just unbelievable level of consistency in most of his work. There's some obviously down patches, but it's never not interesting. And there's about 10 of his albums that I think are absolute masterpieces.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to say who's the Dylanologist amongst us, but we're probably about equal in knowledge, I'd say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty obsessive, and I have been pretty obsessive since I was probably about 16, I'd say.
Yeah, I got to him in about college, so yeah.
Yeah. So we've been consistently listening to Bob Dylan since we were both about 16.
Yeah.
So we probably both got about a decade on us of extensively listening to Dylan's music. But there's one patch which I've always been really eager to deep dive into a bit more, which the format of Sunday Cinematic Service has kind of given to us, though we're now singing from a different songbook, if you know what I mean. Making the terrible jokes early.
Yeah.
So we're singing from a different songbook this week, because I've always found the Christian period to be fascinating.
These are 3 albums which start off with Slow Train Coming.
Yep.
Then they go to Saved, then Shot of Love. Are they all one a year? Is it 79, 80 and 81?
Pretty much, yeah. One a year from 79, yeah. So
we'll talk about those shortly. We'll be doing a long one on Slow Train Coming. But now we will talk about the religious imagery in his songs that aren't on those 3 albums.
Yeah, because, even before his whole Born Again period, pre and post Dylan has dealt with religion in some forms or another.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably important to kind of discuss them and how it's kind of different to what he does on the Christian Trilogy, which is probably a good way of kind of prefacing it. So we're kind of looking back and also kind of looking forward
Yeah.
but in a weird kind of way that sets the stage quite nicely for discussing the Christian albums. So,
yeah. Well, my theory of how he uses sort of religion to sort of in his work, sort of pre the Christian trilogy, and I'm not as versed with his stuff afterwards. Certainly none of the stuff like Infidels or I've sort of gone from everything from the 60s, few of the 70s stuff, and sort of the 97 stuff onwards.
like the revival stuff.
Starting with Time Out of Mind, and then pretty much everything since then is at least pretty decent. Like.
Yeah, definitely. The albums of like original material, I think are phenomenal.
Oh yeah, like Tempest's absolutely
Tempest is amazing.
Love
and Theft is great. Modern Times is excellent. I quite like Together Through Life as well. That's a little bit of an underrated one. Time Out of Mind is really good as well. Is Frank Sinatra go again off track a bit here? It's so easy to get off track with Dylan because he's so as I say, so consistently fascinating in pretty much all aspects of what he does. I suppose an early one that springs to mind is from The Times They Are Changing. Yeah, which is called With God on Our Side.
Yes, which sort of uses God ironically to... It's about sort of how people use God to be like a sort of self-serving thing to sort of do sort of bad stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And, it comes from an album which is, it's an album which is probably the most protesty out of protesty songs of kind of the album Bob Dylan did from that period. When people think of protest Bob Dylan, The Times They Are Changing is the one that instantly comes to my mind. But it's a great album. I've always really liked it. The title track's a classic.
Lonesome Death
Hard Cow's amazing. Yeah, that continues to be like so relevant today. So we'll call it a bit dry these days, but I like it for the kind of the lyrical content. But We've Got on Our Side is Dylan that is probably his most musing in terms of that. With some amazing lyrics, so we're just getting up here. Where essentially he's kind of going through the history of America really, and he's looking at how God's been involved essentially. The lyrics here which talk about the First World War, which is the First World War, boys, it came and went. The reason for fighting I never did get, but I learned to accept it with pride. For you don't count the dead when God's on your side, which is you're talking about the irony of it.
Using like the sort of lyrics, they pick like a war, like say the reasoning behind it, and then the reasoning's inevitably the fact that God's on your side. Yeah. So it's sort of using that's incredibly relevant now with sort of extreme religious sort of right in America, like using God as a sort of self-serving way to back things like American intervention and stuff. So
yeah, definitely, and kind of what's really clever about the lyrics is that looking at them here laid out. They kind of go through conflict by conflict. So, like with this one here, it's kind of goes back to that kind of slightly nuclear apocalypse, which Dylan fears in, like, the Freewheeling, Bob Dylan, oh, where have you been, my blue-eyed son? That one.
Hard rain's going to fall.
Hard rain's are going to fall, yeah. Where it says, but now we got weapons of chemical dust. If fire them we're forced to, then fire, then we must. One push of a button and a shot for worldwide. You never ask questions when God's on your side. Through many a dark hour I've been thinking about this, that Jesus Christ was betrayed by a kiss, but I can't think for you, you'll have to decide whether Judas Iscariot had God on his side. It's really contemplative, and like he's dealing with, for someone, you gotta remember as well, I think at this point, Dylan was so young.
Yeah, when you're like 23 or something.
Yeah, writing these like phenomenal lyrics, like, thought-provoking, and in a way that the Christian Trilogy doesn't really get to.
Oh.
Like really, like even probably around this time, I know like speculating too much like on, like the artist's involvement, what was his stance on religion at this time? You can kind of only go off the lyrics and interpret kind of what. Kind of what he's saying, but it would be kind of interesting knowing kind of what his stance was at the time.
Yeah.
But
they seem to have kind of a well, I think that my grand thesis on sort of how he uses religion, more going forward in sort of the more freewheeling stuff, ironic use of words, in stuff like Highway 61 and Blonde on Blonde. They're seen, and Bringing It All Back Home as well, sort of similar lyrically as well, where it's sort of a grand mess of sort of almost all of culture.
Yeah, definitely.
And part of that is using sort of the Bible as like a lyric source as well. Like he references like classic literature, history, myths, fables. Like there's just so much sort of going on in every lyric of all the songs on those albums, and part of that involves like religion. It's like Desolation Row.
I was just going to mention that one. Yeah, that's kind of the one that I always think of.
Because that is about 11 minutes long, and it just features just so much of everything going on. So you got Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare reference.
Yeah, so another one I really like is now the moon is almost hidden, the stars are beginning to hide, the fortune-telling lady has even taken all her things inside, all except for Cain and Abel and the hunchback of Notre Dame. Everybody is making love or else expecting rain, and the Good Samaritan, he's dressing, he's getting ready for the show. He's going to the carnival tonight on Desolation Row. Yeah, so it's all part of this weird diaspora of different figures. So it's quite what he's trying to do.
I think it's sort of like, it's very sort of 60s countercultural way of sort of equating everything together. So by using sort of low and high cultural references together, and also the pop vehicle would have been seen at the time as a way just to do cheesy sort of Elvis style love songs. But to show you can get all these different sort of references and amalgamate them all together, it sort of is kind of like almost utopian. Like the way that he's saying, that mixing both of fictitious and historical things together. And, depending on how you go, the Bible could be either of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, by mixing everything together, I think it is trying to level sort of everything into sort of the same playing field. Almost saying that, that lyrics can be about anything. And
Yeah. That's what's kind of important on those kind of like early albums, yeah. Well, especially like his electric stuff. Especially with that one, because it comes at the end of a fully electric album. And it always stands out. And Desolation Row is an amazing song, because it's like 11 minutes. The instrumentation is fairly basic, but it never gets dull.
Isn't it the only acoustic song on Highway 61?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. Pretty sure it is. But yeah, so you mentioned like Einstein and Robin Hood and Dr. Filth and like all sorts, Phantom of the Opera, Casanova, the Titanic, T.S. Eliot,
Ezra
Pound, yeah. Everyone's in here, and religion is just kind of one part of it, so...
and also it's moving away from story songs, which is very much sort of what he was doing on some of the songs on the
so something like with God on Our Side, which is very cut and dry and contemplative, and there's a really clear poetic arc to what he's doing. This is getting into more like, I don't know, probably more like, well, I know he was heavily inspired by like Allen Ginsberg, like a lot of his poetry, which is fairly out there.
Well, it's moving into sort of pure imagery as well, rather than trying to have something concrete to sort of say. I mean, you can see sort of how like the religion's part of it as well, like by being so sort of irreverent and using them just in the they're equating them with sort of Einstein and sort of with just everything from sort of modern culture. You can see how people would have been pissed off by it, like seeing it possibly as sacrilegious as.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
But it's so indicative as well of a sort of 60s counterculture, like the way songs like Desolation Row, just mix everything together. Like it does feel like, even now I think it feels like something that's new, and that like it's inspiring as well. Just like you could literally have anything.
Yeah. And it's kind of important that was kind of like the groundwork that was laid out in like like that important time, because then it sets the stage for pretty much the rest of his career then. I suppose after that, after the musings of like the 60s, the next thing that kind of pops to mind for me is stuff from the Basement Tapes.
Oh, that, and I think John Wesley Harding as well. They follow a sort of...
We'll definitely get to John Wesley Harding, because there's a bit to say about that, but there's a few on which have kind of came out. I feel like this one came out on the original version, but that's irrelevant now.
Tell us how you really think about the original version.
Alright, I think the original version of the Basement Tape sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah, the 75 Basement Tape's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
controversially, half of it's like the band stuff when the band didn't write half the stuff at the time. Like,
yeah, it's like years after and stuff. But kind of on that album, well, if you listen to like the complete Basement Tapes, which in my opinion is the definitive edition, there's all sorts of stuff which Dylan kind of deals with, and one that really comes to mind is a great song, and it is called "Sign of the Cross," I think.
oh yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, no, like that. Well, my favourite song on. Well, I'll let you discuss "Sign of the Cross" when you get the lyrics up.
Yeah.
But my favourite one on there is "I'm Not There."
Oh yeah.
The song that actually came about from the film "I'm Not There," but that's just full of religious imagery as well. The lyrics to that also seems to, it's like a love song. Well, with Bob Dylan, it can be interpreted in so many ways. And just get the lyrics as that and all, but that's got religious imagery. So and it runs through the entirety of the Basement Tapes, isn't it?
Yeah, because like with the Basement Tapes, it was all about like after the electricity and the experimentation of like the mid-60s, it was all about getting back to the roots, going back to fables and legends and myth and stories of religion, and that's kind of why they have such this kind of cool mystique about them. I mean, it pretty much created Americana, as is. So the whole idea of looking back, and just the concept of like Bob Dylan, innovator, looking back at kind of this very, I want to say like nostalgic time, looking at great American fables and myths and legends and all that kind of stuff, which kind of then predates the stuff that he's been doing recently with his more modern stuff, which is like modern day Americana, like especially like Love and Theft, which is really leading into like the whole Americana stuff.
And Tempest as well. That
Tempest
sounds like it
well,
could have been
yeah.
made in the
Yeah.
20s or so.
But Sign of the Cross is kind of this huge epic song. It's about 6 minutes, but a very different lyrical content to With God on Our Side and to the way he used religion, like on the Electric Trilogy. It's a lot more austere sounding. It almost sounds like it could have been like a hymn, like in a church, which again is part of what the Basement Tapes was about. It was all about going back and repurposing old songs and kind of making up your own old songs. I mean, lyrically, it's he uses lots of like old English. It's an old sign of the cross that worries me. Let's see. So now, when I was just a bawling child, I saw what I wanted to be, and it's all for the sake of that picture I should see. But I was lost on the moon as I heard that front door slam, and that old sign of the cross still worries me. So yeah, it's almost like it's like it's religion playing the background part, but it's kind of always been that sign of the cross. It's the old sign on the cross. Well, it's that old key to the kingdom. Well, it's that old sign of the cross like you used to be. So you can kind of see how it almost like hovers over like the narrator of the song. How like religious imagery plays on his mind.
And like in I'm Not There and all the fingers, he calls these the love interest in that the Christ-forsaken angel, and there's like a lot of imagery like that in there.
Yeah,
I think in all like I think the religion is used in like the similar way to a lot of the stuff on Basement Tapes. So like Basement Tapes got a real mournful sound as well as the sort of joyful bits. Like one of my favourites, what Tears of Rage is it
Tears
called?
of Rage, yeah.
Like a lot of people interpret that as being about sort of the Vietnam War, and I think the Basement Tapes has got a real feeling of sort of getting back after sort of the excesses of the 60s, like
definitely, yeah.
And I think that like the idea of looking back for sort of, it is kind of an Old Testament sort of look at sort of the Bible, something to be scared of and fearful, and like a way to sort of discipline. But I think that's sort of what he's sort of getting at a lot with the Basement Tapes, and also with the next album.
The next album, John Wesley Harding.
So what is John Wesley Harding?
So John Wesley Harding was the controversial follow-up to Blonde on Blonde. After Blonde on Blonde, which is one of the most innovative, amazing double albums ever, he follows it. Well, he had his infamous motorbike crash, and he follows it up with a period of where he's recording the Basement Tapes albums. But in between this time as well, in 1967, the Summer of Love, the year of Sergeant Pepper's, the year after Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, and everyone's
Loves Forever Changes.
Loves Forever Changes, yeah, and everyone's favourite Rolling Stones album, Their Satanic Majesty's Requests.
Oh yeah.
Comes John Wesley Harding, which stands in such stark contrast to pretty much everything else that was coming out at that time.
Yeah. Well, even like I jokingly said, "Loves Forever Changes" because it was a massive flop at the time, and everyone only likes it now. That's kind of the first kind of like post '60s album because it's so mournful and like it's like psychedelia but really dark and twisted. But even that is still psychedelia. It's still like lush sounding and beautiful, but. John Wesley Harding, much more austere and...
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, like, John Wesley Harding is an album that I like, but it's always been one of I've always kind of struggled to get into.
I like it. I think it's a really good album.
Yeah, it's really good, yeah. It's really good, yeah.
I think it's a bit hit and miss, but it's got some amazing songs on. Most famous one on here is All Along the Watchtower.
Yeah.
Covered by Jimi Hendrix on Electric Ladyland, I think.
Electric Ladyland, yeah. Dylan pretty much says like that is like the definitive version.
I actually like his better,
Yeah, it's been a while since I've heard both, so I don't really know how I feel on how I feel. But yeah, so like kind of the dark religious tones which appeared on the Basement Tape sessions kind of continues here. So like like it mentions like a lot of the language used was come from the King James Bible.
Yeah.
So, according to a source in the book The Bible in the Lyrics of Bob Dylan, Burt Cartwright cites more than 60 biblical allusions over the course of the 38.5-minute album, with as many as 15 in the ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest. And Old Testament morality also colours many of the song's characters. So again, similar to the Basement Tapes, going back to kind of myths, fables, Old Testament-y religion... which, weirdly enough, is just kind of prelude to how Dylan goes in the Christian albums. But yeah, we'll get there.
Not to spoil the Christian albums too much, they seem to be like a sort of retreat from the modern world in a way, and like there's a definite feeling of apocalypse on it. John Wesley Harding also has that, but rather than the sort of specific gloom of the Christian albums, which are probably again, not to get too much into it, but he did like Blood on the Tracks around that time, which is again another Restore album about his divorce. Like the Christian albums seem to be like a man completely at the end of his rope, but John Wesley Harding seems to be more like somebody just looking at wider culture and casting a sort of discerning eye on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think it actually makes a really good pairing with Nashville Skyline.
Oh yeah, I'm quite fond of that one.
Yeah, but Nashville feels relatively kind of at peace. Like you've got Lay Lady Lay, a simple kind of love song but very yearning.
Whatever happened? Who has really weird singing voice. Yeah.
And you've got like just silly stuff like Cherry Pie, Country Pie on there, and that's quite contented in sort of like seclusion. This feels like very violent and like
definitely
like a lot of people seem to get killed in this album as well. Like. But yeah, it's very, very like drawn back and very. It feels like an Old Testament stories in song.
Yeah, definitely. Form. Yeah, I mean, like apparently in an interview with Toby Thompson in 1968, Dylan's mother Betty Zimmerman. I'm just reading from Wikipedia now. Betty Zimmerman mentioned Dylan's growing interest in the Bible, stating that in his house in Woodstock today, there's a huge Bible open on a stand in the middle of his study. Of all the books that crowd his house, overflow from his house, that Bible gets the most attention. He's continuously getting up and going over to refer to something. So clearly that fascination with old tales, whether true or, whether happened or not, So actually I'd almost forgotten about this album's existence and the heavy Christian themes of it. So let's look into this one for a bit. So we'll kind of, I suppose we'll go through as we see them, So I dreamed of, I saw Saint Augustine. So the narrator is addressed by his dreams of seeing Saint Augustine of Hippo, the bishop philosopher who held the I'm not very good at pronouncing that kind of stuff.
Episcopal.
Episcata, yeah. Seat in Hippo Regius, a Roman port in North Africa, and died in 430 AD when the city was overrun by Vandals. So you've got that. What else? We've got All on the Watchtower is inspired in the section by Isaiah dealing with the fall of Babylon. All sorts. The ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest. See, there's been a bit of a morality play, and obviously you've kept drawing upon the whole Judas imagery. Let's see what else we've got.
It sort of tails off at the end. This is what I mean about being hit and miss. Like, you end up with like a cheesy song called "I'll Be Your Baby Tonight." I think it's called.
I'll be,
I'll be your baby tonight. Yeah. But yeah, like the first half, it's incredibly strong, and also has heavy sort of Bible imagery. Then I'd argue that like he sort of tailed. I think like the early 70s for Dylan, because we talked about Nashville Skyline, is kind of a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Have you heard like Forever Young?
Forever Young, yeah. That's from Planet Waves.
Yeah. Like you've got that. You've got the one with Man in Me from The Big Lebowski.
Oh.
I can't remember what that album's even called. It's got Day of the Locusts on. New Morning.
New Morning. Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind New Morning.
I think up until Blood on the Tracks, from after Nashville Skyline, he's just experimenting with stuff, doesn't really know where to go.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's obviously Self-Portrait as well, which only makes sense in context now.
Yeah.
Well, like, it's become a big cult, like a big cult album.
Still awful, though.
It's still awful, but it's almost like, it's the whole ragtag of just, I'm doing a bit of everything. I'm doing a bit of weirdness, you know. It didn't make any sense when it came out in 1970 because people were like, you know, what the hell is Bob Dylan doing? But now, you know, people know the full story. People know about Basement Tapes. People know about another Self-Portrait, the amazing bootleg series volume which came out. People kind of get it a bit more now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything really striking
on
Self-Portrait. Yeah.
There is the great live version of Like a Rolling Stone.
Oh God, yeah.
But do you remember the version? Like, the thing that makes me laugh on there is the Boxer, where it's him double tracked. It's like, oh, it's just the power. Like, he just sings it so badly on there.
And my story's never told. Yeah, he kind of sings like that. Interlude. Yeah, it's a pleasant album. New Morning. That's the next one after that. I think it's pleasant. It's not great or anything. And weirdly, Dylan like devotes a whole section of it in his autobiography.
Really?
Yeah. It's quite good, his autobiography.
Oh, I've read it. Where the bit where there's a really moving bit where he meets William Guthrie, isn't there?
Yeah, William Guthrie. Yeah. But he talks about like recording like probably like his least popular albums. Like, you know, people want like, and again, it's probably part of his intentional trolling where like, you know, he doesn't talk about the, you know, the recording of, you know, the Electric Trilogy or like Blood on the Tracks, the juicy details about his divorce.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like, I'm gonna write a chapter about the making of my debut album, New Morning, and my late '80s album, Oh Mercy.
To be fair, though, they have been covered absolutely to death, though.
Oh, like, definitely. Yeah,
I'd rather hear about that than. We've now gotten onto on Wikipedia. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid,
the soundtrack to the film of the same name by Sam Peckinpah, which Dylan also starred in.
Stunning film. I absolutely love Pat Garrett. I love Pat Garrett.
Yeah. And where Dylan played the memorable role of
Alias.
Alias. Alias.
He's not very good in the film though. He is complete blank. Well, we're going to watch Mastered Anonymous. Let's see if he's a blank slate in that and all. But I have a feeling he will be.
But obviously that one's got Knocking on Heaven's Door, which
is one of the most on the nose songs ever made.
You know, it explains what it is right there. Yeah.
And if you are wondering, I wonder if that takes place as someone dies in the film. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, it's a lovely song.
Yeah, it's good. It's just way too. It's the way it's used in the film though is just way too on the nose. Oh, and then we've got to Dylan, which is awful, which we won't mention. The
album made with the band. It Must Be For the Flood,
which is live album.
Blood on the Tracks, which doesn't get too religious-y, but
yeah, I would say probably. I reckon Blood on the Tracks is if you got rid of Jack Summit. What is the Queen of Hearts?
Lily, Rosemary, and the Jack of Hearts.
Yeah, that if that went on it, it'd be his best album.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
Then sort of Basement Tapes, the crap version, Desire. Anything religious on Desire that you remember?
I'll take a look at the track listing. It doesn't contain his unfortunate Joey.
That's awful.
Which I won't get into. Joey's not very good. No, not really. He's kind of stopped singing too much about the moment.
It's got a great song called Sarah on it.
Sarah's great. I actually quite like Desire.
I think it's just really hit and miss, to be honest.
Yeah, the songs that hit are really big. So we'll skip past the Christian trilogy because we'll kind of preface.
You're missing Street Legal.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about Street Legal next time. Yeah, then you've kind of got his middle periods, his 80s stuff. So we'll skip past that. Yeah, we'll skip past the covers of the 90s. All right, we'll get to the modern stuff.
Time Out of Mind.
Time Out of Mind, yeah, where he kind of gets things back on track a bit. Let's see. To be honest, I'm not too sure if he does. I think he kind of continues to work in the same way as, using religion as part of stuff. You know what I mean? He's definitely more contemplative.
Well, he was reckoning with his own mortality on that because he almost died right before making it, didn't he?
Yeah,
Time
yeah.
Out of Mind. What illness did he have? Do you remember?
I can't remember, and I think basically because a lot of people think Time Out of Mind is kind of like looking at it's people think it's all about him kind of coming to realization with his own mortality.
Yeah.
And because of what happened to him, but he'd recorded the album.
Oh, before that.
Yeah, before then it happened, and then it comes out, and people are like, "Oh, you must have known something." I was like, "No, man, no, it was after." Then it's Love and Theft. I love that one.
But I think the consensus about his later stuff is he's going sort of back to sort of older sort of reference points, and that is what sort of makes it more. Yeah, like he's using the religion more, like because he is sort of channeling older songwriting techniques and.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can just talk about them as like one big sort of coherent block because we'll all be saying the same thing about them basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Stuff. Yeah, the latest stuff. Yeah, so the latest stuff kind of goes back to kind of Dylan's whole fascination of
early music.
Yeah, pre rock and roll, pre rock music. He uses a very stripped down band, like big double bass and that kind of stuff. And the lyrics, the lyrics and the genres tend to kind of they tend not to look too much of a modern world. They tend to kind of be. This is the part where kind of as well where Dylan drops his. He's got his kind of infamously kind of like Tom Waitsy voice.
Yeah, his voice is completely
yeah, which I'll be honest, I love.
I like it.
I love Bob Dylan's old voice. Like, I think it's a very acquired taste, but I know it's almost like treacle to me.
Yeah.
Like, I love low growly vocals. Like, whenever an artist goes deep, I prefer it. It's like with Kate Bush.
Oh yeah.
Like there's like whiny Kate Bush, yeah. And then there's when she drops it, like for Hounds of Love, where I'm like. Spot on, girl. Spot on. That's it. Spot on. So it goes back. Yeah, we're saying So it goes back to similar stance to the basement tapes, where again it doesn't definitely feature as strongly, but I definitely feel like it's woven into it. There is his Christian album. There is his Christmas album.
Well, Christmas is a Christian holiday. Will that be like a sneak thing that we... Have you ever listened to his Christmas album?
No, but... I'll admit that...
that music video is classic.
I'll admit that a lot of like Christmas parties from the last couple of years at my girlfriend's parents... Like, that song's been played quite a lot. Must Be Santa.
Must Be Santa, yeah.
And we kind of love it.
It is good. A lot of people think it's actually a really good album now because they know he knows kind of that he's being ridiculous. Like, yeah.
Like, I think with It Must Be Santa, I think because I saw it had been voted as like one of the worst Bob Dylan songs, and I'm like...
Is that an original song? I thought
no, it's an original song. Yeah, it's Bob Dylan's Christmas song.
Oh wow!
And I think if you're in the right mood, you're feeling a bit jolly, you've had a few to drink,
a few sherries,
you're digesting your turkey. You've got the Baileys out. You're getting a bit classy for the evening. Like the cheese board's out. You're getting a bit classy for the evening. It Must Be Santa comes on. Everyone's like, we can have a little dance to this one.
Yeah.
That's why I quite like it because it's kind of like it's a Christmassy song, but it doesn't sound like a Christmassy song.
I love the wig he wears in the video.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
it looks like Kid Rock.
Yeah. I quite like it, but I mean, I have heard elements. Oh wait, it's not. Sorry, it's a cover.
I thought it was.
Oh, my bad, my mistake. It's a cover.
Well, I don't think it's fair to call it one of the worst songs he's done then.
Fuck no. No, not when his cover of Big Yellow Taxi exists. Like,
Is that on self-portrait?
no, that's on Dylan. not when that exists.
I think his cover of his cover of The Box is the worst one because it's the double-tracked vocals that make it so bad. And who can forget all the pretty horses in the sun? Are you gonna get any ran done?
That's it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's called Must Be Santa. That's it. Yeah, Must Be Santa. Must be Santa. Must be Santa. Santa Claus. Yeah, I can't have one. But yeah, then all the other. It's like a Tom Waits like a Christmas album, which I would love. Make it Tom Waits. But then like a lot of the other songs of the album, then I kind of like your traditional Christmas hymns. Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Oh Come All Ye Faithful. The First Noel. Little Town of Bethlehem. And we're kind of getting to the end of history here a bit because after that it's Tempest.
Which is a really amazing... I think that kind of a bit underrated now.
Tempest is great, yeah.
It got a lot of acclaim when it comes out, but I've not heard anyone talk about it. But really great album. That's kind of like... That uses religion again in that way where it's sort of woven in with sort of everything else.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And, you know, that classic song and all, Tempest itself, like that just seems to, again, cover like everything. It's about like the Titanic, but it waves in like so much sort of history as well.
Yeah, so then after that, it's like Frank Sinatra cover albums, and yeah, it's kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah,
he's got one more great original album in him. I feel.
I think he'll make one more.
He's got to make one more,
and die.
Yeah,
I reckon he'll be like the last survivor of the sort of '60s wave, and then he'll go. But yeah, that was every Bob Dylan album and sort of religion within them. We'll be talking about Slow Train coming pretty soon. Might release it before this. But stay tuned for that. And good, in summation, good artist.